How far have we come? Our picture of the world is clearer than we ever could have imagined. We've mapped nearly every surface of every continent on Earth, charted the depths of the oceans, and then we went further. To the moon, to Mars, across galaxies, to the farthest reaches of the universe. And we're still drawn forward by the lure of the unknown, the pull of possibility. We are scientists, pioneers, and explorers. This is our relentless pursuit, the drive, passion, and purpose of all of us since we emerged from our caves and saw the stars. It is what brought us to this point, and will bring us to points beyond, past what we know, all we've imagined, and then further.
All right. Hello and welcome to the National Geographic Smart Cities panel. Thank you for being here on Election Day. I'm very happy to be here and happy to be away from all that. So may the best lady win. This is a new positioning video for National Geographic, and it talks about how we're going further. It talks about how we explore the world with passion and purpose. And this approach is building on a rich heritage at National Geographic that goes back to 1888. Since then, we've been exploring and we've been conserving the planet. But now we're at a crucial point in our journey and in the journey of the areas that we cover as a travel magazine. And that's what this panel is about, is how we can go further. So my name is George Stone. I'm the editor-in-chief of National Geographic Travel US edition. There's a UK edition, and I'm sure many of you love it. I love it too. It's my second favorite unless I'm in India, and the Indian edition is actually very good. But UK edition is lovely, and it's a very important relationship that we have because our network of writers and contributors and experts around the world make our content strong. And we have 16 international editions. This helps us cover cities and cover destinations with clarity and with an authentic voice and facts that are based on real experiences in travel. So National Geographic has been a lot of places. This morning, I was on the trading floor of Lloyd's of London, and I was very happy to see that there was a National Geographic printed atlas there. And it filled me with pride because I just said, take that, Google Maps. There it is. But we do so much more than map the world. In many ways, we map cultures and we map changes. And urban innovations are really among the most exciting drivers of tourism today. So many of you know that over the last decade, cities have become not just the starting points and the ending points, but over the last decade, 80% of city travel has grown by 80%, which is significant. That has outpaced national tourism trends, and beyond that, spending in cities outpaces national GDP. So we are really seeing a focus on cities, not just as hubs of transit, but as destinations for travel. This is a great opportunity, and we know many reasons for that. We know that we have become citified people. We know that cities are attracting populations and growing by the day. In fact, one of our panelists from Austin, Texas, told me last night that I think you receive 125 new residents a day, which is a significant indicator of growth. All this takes management. It takes management on a number of different levels, from the policy apparatus at the top to the communication outward to travelers, internal communication from the standpoint of placemaking, and then also communication, and this is where I come in as a travel media person, to people experiencing a city and what do they experience and how can residents help contribute to creating a wonderful destination for visitors? How can visitors actually bring value to a destination by traveling in a creative way? So this discussion today is all about how we can capitalize on this trend in city travel. And I'm going to introduce our four amazing panelists. They will each give a short introduction to themselves and also about their initiatives. And then I'll ask a few questions, but this is going to work best if you bring your best questions, because the value that you take away could come from the question you ask. So don't let me do all the talking. And with further ado, then I'd like to introduce the four panelists, and then one by one they'll come up. So Julie Chase on the end is the Chief Marketing Officer of Visit Austin. That's Texas. Texas may not be a swing state. Austin is solidly in the right place. Patricio Gabor, a director of Quito Tourism in Ecuador. Hilda Huckelberg, who's the Director of Innovation Norway, and then my colleague, Andrew Nelson, who is the Director of Editorial Partnerships, and then for many, many years has been a writer and a contributor to National Geographic Traveler magazine as an urban insider, covering trends and innovations in cities. So I look forward to an enlightening discussion about urban innovations, or an innovative discussion about urban enlightenment, and without any more, please, Julie.
No.
Yeah, of course I wrecked it.
Okay.
Slido app. You can ask questions on the Slido app, and you can download that on the WTM portal. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks. This is great to be here, and good afternoon. It's nice to see such a crowd, and to take a break from the appointments at the booth that we've been busy all morning. I want to cover Austin a little bit. I'm not sure if some people have ever visited Austin here in the crowd. Austin, which I'll show you, is a bit of a young town, young city. We are the state capital of Texas. University of Texas, which is now one of the largest universities in the United States, was founded in Texas in 1881. And then a lot of stuff happened. And then we're going to jump ahead to 1976, when the music scene was coming together, and what is now one of the largest running, or it is the longest running TV show, Austin City Limits, first debuted. In 1987, South by Southwest, which is the festivals and conferences of interactive music and film, premiered. And in the 90s, we were then dubbed as the Silicon Hills, due to the large number of tech companies either starting in Austin or those that were relocating or expanding into the city. In 2002, The Rise of the Creative Class, the book written by Richard Florida, was published and ranked Austin, among other cities like San Francisco and Boston, as one having the highest rank in their creative index, which was great because it did bring together the creative new ideas, new technologies, and new creative content that was being developed in Austin. Austin today, we've hit probably close to 2 million in the metropolitan area. We're the 11th largest city in the U.S., considering that we have 3 of the top 10 cities in the U.S. based in Texas. We are moving up rapidly. And as he mentioned, we do have a lot of people moving in weekly. We are dubbed the live music capital of the world. More than 250 live music venues and over 2,000 musicians, recording artists live in the city. We are also the film capital of Texas. We are also one of the most film destinations for filmmakers throughout the U.S. We now have over 5,000 or 5,400 high-tech companies that have located in that number every day. We see a new announcement about a new company coming into the city. And nearly $1 billion in startup investment in 2015. So one of the things I mentioned earlier was kind of our key. There's so many things to do in Austin, but I think this festival and event pretty much shaped Austin, which is South by Southwest. So South by Southwest really put Austin on the map, domestic and internationally. We know a little bit about Austin, the music scene, the high-tech scene, the film scene, all coming together. But when South by was created, it was a group of 4 people who wanted to put together a music opportunity for musicians and for record producers and so forth to really have the opportunity to meet and eventually get contracts. It is now blown into, as you can see here from the video, over 2 weeks of events. More than 100,000 people come through the city. We have education, South by Education, South by Interactive, South by Sports, South by Medicine, South by Wearables, South by Food, South by Fashion, and the list goes on. We also have, of course, the music and the film. The music wraps up the event with bands from all over the world. Countries from all over the world come in and set up shop to support their artists and musicians, to again go back to the beginning of why South by started, to get those contracts and to get center stage. When the first event in March of 1987 occurred, we had about 150 registrants, and now we are again at about 100,000 folks coming through the city. So activations in alleyways, on every corner, every new high-tech gadget wants to make an appearance at South by. One of the most exciting things I think that's happened in Austin since I've been there for 20 plus years is we are home to the only U.S. home to Formula One racing. So in 2010, some very wealthy gentlemen got together and decided to build a track. No city funds were provided, no state funds were provided for the building of the track. We then attracted Formula One. We just wrapped up our 5th year with record attendance of over 269,000 folks coming in for a 3-day weekend. Circuit of the Americas is also a leader in environmental awareness, sustainability, educational and scientific fields, including solar car technology, of course, racing and consumer automotive technology. They have plans for a lot more. Not only do we have the Formula One, but the track can retrofit into MotoGP racing. Le Mans is held every September in Austin. So we're starting to see a very different demographic coming in to the city as visitors. And a lot of investment is coming in with this type of visitor. And finally, our new attraction that I haven't unfortunately had the chance to go out to, just opened last week, is the Inland Surf Park. So not too far from the Circuit of the Americas, just about a 5-10 minute drive outside of the downtown core, is the Inland Surf Park. It's a 14-acre water garden lagoon filled big pond. Rainwater, recycled water that comes through. You actually think you're at the ocean, but we're in the center of Texas, and I can promise you there's no beach anywhere near. It's great for world-class surfers, those wanting to come experience for the first time surfing without having to head out into the ocean. The Wave Park is, again, founded and built by those coming in, not part of a city funding or a county funding, but coming in to build something that they know will attract not only the locals, be a great attraction for locals, but of course for those coming in to experience Austin. This particular park was funded by P. Coors, the Coors Brewing Company out of Colorado. Actually came in and built the facility in Austin. This is patented technology. We, again, are the only one in North America to have this great new surf park. And I'll wrap it up. I think that was me having to end. The Austin brand. So back to the music. One of the things that we do in Austin, and I know we talked a little bit about the people and the things that need to be done to continue to support the brand and the product. Our brand is music. Coming into Austin, hearing music, having the musicians go out on the road, having the musicians play in the festivals. We have 30 plus organizations throughout the city that help musicians, really the wealth and the health of musicians, from mental health support to business development funding to daycare, to whatever the musicians need to make sure that they're still a vital part of our community. And again, with home to 2,000 musicians, everywhere from Willie Nelson who's been on the scene for many, many years, to some of the new up-and-coming artists who are calling Austin home. And that's definitely one of the many ways that, and the number one way that we promote Austin. Okay.
Both smart cities and smart tourism. So I'm delighted on behalf of my colleagues in Innovation Norway and also our dedicated partners to share some of our ambitions on how we want to further develop smart cities and smart tourism. First, take a look at this video.
As our cities are growing, becoming more complex, we need new and better solutions to old problems that keep our cities healthy, that make our cities smart. In 1987, Norway spearheaded the concept of sustainability with the Brundtland Report. These days, you find this word everywhere. Sustainable food, sustainable travel, sustainable cities. At the heart of it is our desire for those who come after us to enjoy the things we enjoy. Today, improving our cities goes beyond simply crafting a comfortable home for ourselves. We say our cities should be smart, but we also recognize that the smart thing to do is not necessarily the easy thing to do. We want our buildings to be smart, to dim our lights when we're not there. We want our cities to save energy, manage water, and handle traffic jams. We want our surroundings to think for themselves. We want to be on a path of creating technology that makes our lives easier and more comfortable, not at the expense of the environment, but to its rescue. Some of our greatest achievements have come from the fusion of private entrepreneurial spirit and political support across different branches of society. This is the Norwegian way. The city is where we live. The city is where we grow. Do you want your city to be healthy? Do you want your city to be smart?
Let's see. This works. Yeah, it works. Okay, just to put it into a global context first. If we look at the global urban population, it actually has been rising by 65 million in average every year, the last 30 years. And if you compare that to Norway, it's the same as adding 13 times Norway's population every year, all those years. And there are a different side of this. That's the grand challenges. That's the 2 billion people that is expected to be living in urban areas the next 30 years. And how we actually going to build the cities are going to define how the future of life on Earth is going to be. the UN has set out some sustainable agenda for sustainable development, and it's been signed by all the UN member states. It's 17 goals, and one of those goals are actually smart cities. It's also the digital development. If cities want to make a transition into becoming smart cities, digital technology will play a key part. So, for Norway's, we had a recent wake-up call with the oil price falling, and we had to look at what are Norway's areas of opportunities and for innovation and growth. So in 2015, we, as a Norwegian government agency for innovation and business development, we actually invited our partners and stakeholders nationally and globally to actually give us inputs. We called it the Dream Commitment. And from all the inputs, we got 6 areas of opportunities for growth and increased competitiveness that they identified would be important from Norway. And within those areas is both smart cities and tourism. Smart city could be a lot of things. As you see from this, it's everything from smart grids, smart homes, smart mobility, smart health. So a lot of different things, and even smart tourism. Just to showcase a few examples from Norway, this is Gardermoen. At the moment, we're building a new terminal. So when you arrive in 2017, you will hopefully sense that they train staff now by using gamification to provide better services, and also to know all the critical function and new systems. The Oslo City Dashboard is an initiative by the City of Oslo to how to become a smarter city. And this dashboard actually collects environmental data. It collects pollution, electrical vehicle charging. So it's a live update for people entering the underground station in Oslo. The urban water shuttle is the new way for Norway to design ships that's either electrical or hybrid. So this is an example of a high-speed vessel that could actually be integrated into cities to make sure that you can not only have transport on land but also on the sea. And actually in Norway, the first electrical ferry, that's the first in the world, was launched just recently. We also have a lot of smart tourism initiatives, and this is just to showcase how we use 360-degree video, and Innovation Norway was one of the first to use that. And this is the wingsuit experience, and it's just to give you an exciting experience on what you can expect when coming to Norway. And the last one, Norway Lights. Northern Lights is enormous popular, and of course it's hard to see unless there is a clear sky, and you need to know when to go to make the most out of the experience. So this is a website and an app where actually there is a forecast. So just to make the experience even more amazing. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, people. I also am very excited to be here. This is scary. But okay, I will try to do my best. I just want to thank to Nat Geo to invite me to this panel, and I am honored to share the panel with these beautiful ladies and these gentlemen here. This is part of the process to, get more relaxed before my presentation. So, when Nat Geo told me about the smart destination, I said, okay, I am a little bit familiar of that definition, but I wasn't not so sure about if my city, Quito, the capital of Ecuador, was a smart city. So I decided to do like a self-check of some of the elements that probably a smart city has to have. The first thing that I made was to try to find a definition of a smart destination. This definition I found it from Spain, that say that a smart destination is an innovative space accessible for all, established on a cutting-edge technology infrastructure which guarantees sustainable development for the land, facilities, the interaction and integration of the visitor with the surroundings, and increase the quality of their experience in destination as well as the quality of life of the residents. The photograph that you can see over there is the city of Quito. We are basically located in the middle of the Andes in a valley. We are about 2,800 meters above the sea level. This is something like 12,000 feet, one of the highest capitals in the world. The mountain that you see over there is an active volcano. We are living with volcanoes. We are very relaxed. We are okay with that. It's better to live with a volcano than a crowded room here, okay? So then I trying to see some elements from this definition and then see that we are in a changing world dominated by the new digital economy with traveler much more demanding, informed, hyper-connected and multi-channel. And the transformation of the tourism model of a destination has to be based on the concept of innovation, technology, sustainability, and accessibility to ensure the present and the future of tourism. This is the old town of Quito. Probably some of you know, but Quito was the first city in the world that was declared by UNESCO as the World Heritage Site in 1978. So we have a beautiful old town, and this is the challenge, how we can improve with the technology the experience of the heritage of the city. And I start to see if Quito has some elements that can fit with those concepts over there. This is the first concept that I would like to tell you. The cities must be good first for its citizens to be good for its visitors. I mean that a smart destination has to be create or designed as a whole, thinking first in the locals and then to the visitors. This is a new project that is happening in Quito. We, as any Latin American city, have a very serious problem with the mobility and with transportation. Now we are start building an underground, but it's very hard to build an underground when the city is already there. I mean, you know, in Europe, most of the cities were building underground systems with the city. We already have a 500-year city, and now we are trying to build the underground. So it's a challenge. And this city is a very good example of how you can be good with your citizens, because this is a cable car for public service, but allow the people from poor areas on the slopes of the mountains taking this transportation and connected with the underground system. Then probably the visitors will use that. But first you have to think in the local people. Public bikes, probably in the most of the cities in the world, we have public bikes and bikeways. We have these manual bikes, and then we realized that we are 12,000 feet high, and then we realized that there were a lot of gringos dying because they couldn't bike in a high city. So we decided to bring some electric bikes to help them to bike the city. So yeah, we innovate something because we were trying to adapt this solution with the surrounding, with the environment. We have free Wi-Fi areas in Quito. Most of the public spaces and parks have Wi-Fi, and is used not just for the visitor, but for the citizens. So this is the way how you are creating like a smart destination. First, a smart city, building, thinking to the locals, and then you will be thinking to the visitors. We have an app, Quito mobile app, and we have a virtual office, virtual tourism office there. That is also very important. We have geolocation and augmented reality also to navigate the city. This is me yesterday in our stand. We have 360 degrees video also for discover the city. We have done a lot of video mapping in the old town, which is a beautiful scenery, to increase the experience of the people playing with the monuments and historic buildings like this. And this is the local people. I don't know if you can see how crowded is the streets. So how the citizens, they enjoy this and they go into the old town and see this kind of video mapping. So in city destination, tourism growth as well as visitor experience must be inclusive, inspirational, safe, and accessible to all. Tourism is an instrument to make cities livable, lovable, and economical sustainable. This concept came after a big conference that happened in Quito called Habitat 3, was the global conference in the urban planning for the next 20 years. And this is a definition about how is the work of tourism in the next years in terms of cities. So we have a lot of technology out there. Everything is getting digital. But we believe, in my opinion, that the cities has to focus first in the experience and in the content rather than in the technology. The technology is already there, but you have to know who you are, what is your unique proposal, and then you can start to use the technology. So this is what Quito has to offer. A lot of like authentic experiences in the old town, in historic center, fruit markets with the healing ladies that used to cure you if you have like a spiritual sickness. That is still happening now. We have craft beer, The funny thing is that we used to mix the beer with chocolate, with coffee, with quinoa, with exotic kind of ingredients. We have the chocolate, we have the coffee, we have dramatized tours in the old town that recreate the story of the city and trying to approach you into the experience. So technology can improve competitiveness, but hardly is the differential factor. It seems that destinations have gone mad about the use of the technology, and certainly has many positive things, but many times they forgot the main objective of the smart destination, to engage the traveler with the authentic experience. A smart destination has to focus more on the confirmation of our promise to the visitor rather than the augmented reality, geolocation, have an app, or video mapping. Think about technology, but focus on the content and experience of the destination. And this is the last is from me. Don't be just smart, be wise. Okay, thank you.
Well, hello, everybody. I wanted to talk. We heard a lot of really interesting things about Austin and Oslo and Quito, which I was lucky enough to visit this summer. Yeah, you do need electric bikes up there, Patricio. It's the altitude will get you. But I want to talk really about what we at National Geographic Travel look at when we think of smart cities as destinations, not perhaps so much for the people who are living there, but for the visitor. What do we mean when we mean smart cities? Luckily, a smart city is a National Geographic Traveler city. Smart cities share our values. They're authentic. They're enriching, inspiring, cultural, sustainable, and they're fun. They're fun, right? We all know what cities we want to go to and why we want to go there. So when we look at it from National Geographic Traveler's perspective, we look at these things: technology, how cities are incorporating technology for the traveler experience. We look at preservation. As Patricia was pointing out, Quito's got a lovely, lovely old town, beautiful colonial architecture, just gorgeous, and churches that are the size of entire city blocks. I don't know, people were very busy back in the 15th and 16th century building these churches. Arts and culture, and how do you use that as a smart city? And I'm going to give you an example which may not be what you're thinking about in terms of art and culture, but getting to realize that the culture of a place may not just be in a museum. Entrepreneurship. We saw from Oslo and from Austin how they took some of these destinations, some of these events like South by, and turned it into a huge festival. How many people attend each year, did you say? Over 100,000. Those fill a lot of beds, a lot of hotels. Neighborhoods. This is something we really are interested in National Geographic Traveler. Not just the city, but the neighborhoods. We know that our neighborhoods are changing. Everybody's got a favorite neighborhood that they like to explore or tell people about when they come to their town. When your friends come to your city, you say, well, you've got to check this out. You've got to check out the Bywater. You've got to check out Williamsburg. You've got to check out all of these places. And lastly, it's the people, right? People make a city smart. The inhabitants make a city smart. So when we talk about this, you can see this is a tree forest in Singapore. And what's so interesting about this is Bay South Gardens, is that correct? Marina Bay, right. So when I was in Singapore, this was a technological marvel. These are man-made constructed trees, and they're about 80 to 164 feet high. And what they do is they have photovoltaic solar cells in them that capture the energy and pump it back out. So those lights are all being generated in a solar way. They also light the park around them, and they also serve as air intake valves. And they're amazing. So when you think about this, technology isn't just, or green solutions isn't something that can be hidden. Turn it into an attraction. We talk about preservation. So this is Charleston, South Carolina. It started by preserving its oldest section of, if you know Charleston, it's called the Battery, which is the very tip of Charleston. Once that was preserved, the city began reaching out further and further. Each wave of successive preservation laws ended up stimulating more economic activity. So now when you see Charleston, you see almost a perfectly preserved 19th century American seaport, but bustling with activity. I also think of Sofia, Bulgaria. Sofia actually was built on an old Roman city. So when they were building their metro, they were always encountering ruins, but rather than plow right through them, they incorporated that, and each subway stop is like a mini museum of Greco-Roman heritage. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And then when we talk about culture, culture can also be a cocktail. All right? This is a pisco sour from Lima. Is anybody here from Lima? Nobody from Peru? Oh. As anybody knows, Lima's got an amazing cuisine, an explosion of great food and experimental cuisine. That can be culture too. It's what you eat. That's a cultural expression. So a smart city can capitalize on that. New Orleans, where I used to live, has been doing it for years. So the other thing too, again, we talk about neighborhoods. And again, think of the neighborhoods that are growing and changing in your city. What's happening to them? When we look at it, we want to know the newest neighborhood. We focus on neighborhoods. These are the things that make a destination worth exploring. I mean, there's Centro in Sao Paulo, Brooklyn's Bushwick, San Francisco's Mission, Södermalm in Stockholm. What's the one in Oslo? Is there one, a new neighborhood in Oslo worth visiting? What's the name? What? Okay, so the entire city of Oslo. Okay, but again, look, that's what we look for. So if you were talking to National Geographic Traveler or journalists, think of those neighborhoods. Think of those places. Yes, question?
So you're highlighting now Amsterdam's red light district as a neighborhood to promote?
Well, I didn't know it was the red light district, but it looks kind of yellow, glowing golden. So I think that has been well visited over the years. Nice catch. Okay. And in entrepreneurship, this is Tallinn, Estonia, the birthplace of Skype. And, one of the things that was interesting, because I was talking about this with George, was it really the birthplace of Skype? Yes, it was. But then I looked at it. 94% of Estonians file their taxes online. 24% of Estonians actually vote online. This city, which looks like it's, something out of Game of Thrones, is actually a very 21st century city. And that's important to us, too, the way people are thinking. And which brings us to people, right? People make your city. People make a smart city. So we can look at it, and we did, San Francisco, for example, I did a story totally about the share economy. And I started thinking about that when we were doing this presentation, and I thought, let me just see, at the risk of grabbing some of my own copy, but when I look at all of those things, panhandlers, programmers, poets, transvestites, tourists, the rudest bicyclists on the planet. I used to live in San Francisco, so I can say that. But again, these are all the people that make a city a smart city, or as one newcomer told me, every day in San Francisco feels like a first kiss. Don't you want to go to a place where every day feels like a first kiss? Unless you really had an awkward first kiss, perhaps. But again, this is what makes cities beguiling to us. This is what makes smart cities beguiling. These things. And we have to remember, too, that this is always changing. I taught a group of freshman college students, and one of their assignments was to talk about a city they'd like to visit. And rather than give you their words, I give you a freshman and what kind of city she thinks is the city of the future. Okay, here she is. I hope. There.
The one city I would like to visit is Dubai. I stalk Instagram famous girls in my free time, and they all have one thing in common. They vacation in Dubai. Being that I'm on a quest to be Instagram famous, I believe that visiting Dubai is the first step of initiation. Not only do you get to ride four-wheelers in the desert, but they also have an underwater theme Atlantis water park. Taking pictures on camels and beautiful beaches will definitely have all my followers jealous, and I'll gain even more followers because they would want to see my beautiful photogenic life.
There we go. So, welcome to the future. You're going to be Instagram friendly. You probably already are now. But I just wanted to leave you with Bree here because she is telling you what she's going to be thinking about as a smart city. So why don't we do this right now, George? Let's talk more about smart cities already. Are you ready to go?
Ready to go. I think we all are. I mean, you can tell that we love smart cities. We love cities. And also something important has bubbled up here, and that's fun, and that's humor. And Patricio got that ball rolling, but he's reminding us that cities are fun places of vibrant culture. And Julie's reminding us that cities can be loud and proud. And Hilda is telling us that integrated solutions are going to drive cities towards success. And that's from the top down, policy level, down to the ground. So the smart city concept is one we love. It's old. In some ways, it was originated here in the UK in academic circles. But now, 30 years on, it's clearly in practice all around the world. So it goes beyond technology. But a question for Julie, then, is how do you retain a city's character, even as you're incorporating all sorts of strategies to make your city smart, successful, competitive in a travel market?
Yeah, I think I showed some great new things that are happening from F1 to the surf park, but I think continuing activities and expansion of even South by that really takes in the entire city, really shows off the entire city. maintaining the neighborhoods in the city, and again, back, I think, for us, back to the people or to the musicians, how we protect that product, and how we continue to make sure that the health of the product is there, which would be, for us, the musicians, but also the venues. I mean, I think it's both. I think we're growing so much, so quickly, and changes in infrastructure definitely have to be taken into consideration. But we still have the Weird Austin. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Keep Austin Weird.
Keep Austin.
But that campaign definitely was started by the local businesses that were feeling the pinch of a lot of people moving in. And you see it throughout many of the neighborhoods, many of the bars, many of the venues, the food truck villages all over town. So it doesn't take much to find that authentic Austin.
Mm-hmm. I think you raise a great point, and that's about the importance of infrastructure, and I think that's something that's very clearly on display in Oslo. Hilda, could you talk a little bit about that water shuttle, talk about that dashboard that informs people about these smart city strategies that are actually in place and in play, and how does that impact a visitor's experience?
Yeah, I'll start with the Oslo City dashboard. I think that's a great example of a private-public partnership, and that's what you need in order to be successful creating smart cities. And actually, to be soon live, it's taken a startup backed by Innovation Norway and also Microsoft. It's built on top of Microsoft Azure platform. So it's a lot of artificial intelligence. So I think you would see a lot more machine learning, and that's about cities utilizing the data that they have already available, and also then use that to create awareness, educate people, and also create engagement among people. Because I think technology can do so much, but it's at the end it's the people that's going to decide whether it's going to be a smart city or not. And in terms of the urban water shuttle, Norway has had a long tradition building ships, vessels, and this is just how we add on to our many, many years of experience. So now that we can actually say that we launched the world's first electrical ferry, that's just the beginning, I think, for the vessels that you will see coming out from Norway. And for us, in terms of the tourism part, is that we can offer actually tourists now to see the beautiful fjords with less carbon footprints. So it's a massive and strong message towards the tourists that we wanted to attract.
So public-private collaboration has sort of been at the foundation of smart city thinking for a long time. But Patricio, how do you make that connection then to the people of the city so that they appreciate the strategies that you're putting in play? And then how do you tell that story? Are there secrets that you can bring then from the people's experience to the world to market Quito?
We think that you have to empower the local population. Something happening in Quito that it's a city with a lot of tradition, with a lot of history, but the locals there start to missing that. So in a way, you have to, in an innovative way, you have to trying to recreate that history in the people, in the local people. If they feel it, as their own history, will be more easy for the visitors to appreciate the culture. And something's happening in the old town, for instance. It's a living old town. It's not like a big museum. There's still people living there. People doing the same things that they used to do in the last 100 years. And this is something that the people, they don't know that they have something authentic. They know when a visitor came and they, start to have like a chat or interaction with them, and then they realize that they have something important in them. And again, is the local, is the people who makes this interaction give a value for the visitors.
So creating a local benefit as you're building a destination marketing narrative, so that people really begin to value their culture for themselves, not just as a place-making strategy, but that also helps you build content and tell the story.
Yes.
Now, Andrew, the young woman in the video does not even know press trips exist.
No.
And she doesn't know Dubai.
If
It's
she
down
does,
there
she'd be there.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about social media and how we're doing digital storytelling and social media and how destinations can...
I think one of the things that destinations can begin to do is convey a sense of their excitement, their destination's excitement, through even the use of short interstitial videos, Facebook live broadcasts. I think that giving people a flavor, letting your inhabitants speak to the world. It is really amazing. In Quito, the people living in the old town are just living there. They don't know that this is such a rare experience to have this beautiful, intact, 17th century neighborhood without it being filled full of tourists or being so expensive that nobody can live there, or they're all t-shirt shops. So the idea of actually having the people living in your destination being able to reach out and talk about, in short, meaningful ways, about what is so appealing about their neighborhood or their city, I think goes a great way to getting people enthused or attracted to those destinations, those cities.
Yeah. I just thought of moving from B to B to P to P, people to people, Patricio to people, and these ideas of really sharing stories from person to person, and social media is helping us achieve that around destinations. We have a couple questions, and this is very exciting. I want to go with the second one first by Mr. Anonymous, which is how do you get, because it's a really important question, how do you get city government and city planners to understand the importance of tourism? And so that's about raising the profile of DMOs and tourism so that these issues and imperatives are discussed across the board on a city level. Julie?
Yeah, it's still difficult. Even in Austin with all the wonderful things that we have, that have come online recently, it's still difficult because we still have that mentality in Austin of we want it the way it used to be. And I don't know what that was or what year that was, but we want it the way that it used to be. We have a lot of tourists coming in, but we have all this infrastructure. We have new hotels coming online that the city approves, but yet do we really need to market to bring more folks into the city? So it's a bit of a struggle. I think it's just continuing to look at the economic impact of what the visitors bring in and the benefits ultimately to the residents of decreased taxes and benefits that they're going to experience. But also when you build these things, I think as I pointed out in the presentation, it's wonderful for the locals to experience as well as any tourists that are coming in. But I think it's just a continual process that we in Austin felt like we've gotten to one level, get knocked back down a little bit when it comes to budgets and things like that. But it's just a continual process.
Well, the other thing that I think is really interesting, and we're talking about making that city accessible, sometimes we're seeing where cities somehow become too accessible for the political leadership of those towns. And I refer to a lot of Airbnb controversies that have erupted all around the world where people are saying we have too many tourists coming into our neighborhoods, and then Airbnb is arguing, well, they're contributing directly into the local economy. We see this in San Francisco, New Orleans. It's really interesting that what I find is that sort of our digital life has really begun to impact how we travel, how people travel, in ways that local people are really reacting to, for good or for bad.
So we have a really good question from Steve that popped up, and it gets to everything is being measured today, and we're swimming in analytics. And I think there's a good question for Patricio and Hilda, and it's how do you swim through that? We use data to make our cities smart, but we want to get away from the data to make our cities personable and approachable. and warm destinations. So how do you balance these interests? And the question specifically is, how do these numbers benefit the locals as well as the visitors?
I think for Oslo, it's actually that Oslo attracts nearly as many visitors as residents. So for them, it's equally important to make sure that the people that lives in Oslo are happy. And the way to make them happy is to bundle both technology, but you have to have spaces. You have to take care of all the attractions, the historical places. You have to have green spaces. So there is a lot of sustainability built into the development as well, not just the digital technology. So it's not just enabling the city to become a digital city. And believe me, I'm a tech person, and there is a lot of discussion, and it's not necessarily even the companies try to push technology. There has to be demand. There has to be someone that is willing to use it. So.
And that's an interesting point too, because you have to have that and a sense of history. I mean, would you rather go to Oslo or San Jose or Cupertino? I mean, I would rather go to Oslo. I think there's a much richer experience. Sorry, San Jose, visit California. But I think there's a much richer experience there for some of those very reasons. So it can get as high-tech as you want, but if you're taking care of the sustainability and reminding your history and traditions, I think that's the right balance.
And Patricia, moving beyond tech, or making that bridge from analytics, from these figures, how do you establish then a connection with visitors, and how do you promote Quito as a friendly place?
Data is very important. Since the first moment that the visitor arrives into the city, you have to start chasing him, because of the data. So push here, get in here, give me your email. So I will say that if you can see how the journey of the visitor is, it's very easy to know how he is, using the territory, using the destination. And from that information, it's more, it's very valuable, because you can use it after that to decide, what kind of marketing strategies you can use. And in this time, it's very easy to, chasing the visitors. I mean that rather than chasing you at the beginning, you're chasing him, but then you have to attract him.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a romance.
Yeah.
Sounds like courtship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because you've added a human element to the data, and how it really it isn't just a number. This is a person using a destination, and you can learn a lot about how to produce a better product. Yeah. So it'd be wonderful to address a few more questions if people have them. If not, we've got one right here, which is, how much time is needed to achieve a smart city status? I think instantly, if you say so.
Well, I think you could say so, George, but whether or not that's true, I think that you really have to have a lot. I think it requires a lot of coordination and messaging, and that commitment that we are going to do sustainable practices. We are going to be able to preserve what is historical and has texture and meaning for our residents, and we have to involve our residents. Residents have to be involved. It's not something that can be imposed from on high. It has to also come up from the bottom. I thought I saw a hand over there, but maybe it was somebody.
There are a lot of hands. They're just not.
Oh,
up.
there's. Okay. Questions?
Please go. Yes. Oh.
Okay, it's definitely on now. What advice would you give to the city fathers of a city like Venice, where the residents are actually moving out, tourism's just going through the roof, and for a visitor, having been there recently, it can be quite an unpleasant experience. Mm-hmm. So how do you manage that in in the next 10, 20 years for a city like Venice?
I think that's a great question because it deals with tourism management, urban planning and growth, and projections. So with the growth you're seeing in Austin, how can you, what kind of conversations do you have up and down the policymaking chain and among your stakeholders?
I think it's how are we moving those visitors throughout the city? I mean, we don't have any public transportation in Austin. It's a very walkable city beyond a bus system and a small commuter train. It has 2 cars, so it gets very full. I think with us, I mean, we have to start at the core of the city, which is where most of the visitors are coming in, staying, where the hotel rooms, and it does get quite busy. Also with the core group of businesses and tech companies being located now within the city and not on the outskirts. So everybody's coming into the city center. I think it's just logistic wise how folks are brought in, how they're transported, when things are available for visitors, when activities can be done for visitors. I mean, that's how it works in Austin. I mean, it's a very much concerted effort between the organizers of these events, between the city, between transportation options. So that's how we look at it and how we handle it.
Or maybe the smart solution for Venice is to restrict the number of people who can get into the center core. I mean, you may have to get to that point. We recognize that you can love a city to death as well. So, there has to be a response, a creative response to managing the sort of explosion of tourism, the crush of tourism in Venice, or New Orleans, or half a dozen other cities that are being loved to death.
Sir.
Don't you think you need first smart citizens and smart governments to go to smart cities?
I think that's absolutely required.
Don't ask an American, please.
No. Ask me tomorrow. I'll tell you if we're smart or not. Right.
Let's ask Hilda. Let's ask Patricio. Yes, sir.
Do you worry that smart technologies sometimes act as a barrier between actually enjoying a city and the authenticity of it? Something like staring at augmented reality through your phone takes you out of the moment?
I absolutely agree with you. I think that we've all seen families on vacation, or let's say in Trafalgar Square, they're all on their cell phones, not even looking up. So I think that's something that we're looking at, the idea of the digital-free vacation.
But at the same time, there's this is how people are experiencing the world, and digital first in some ways, digital natives, and they go to a concert and it's like that, and it's different, but it's undeniable. And so it also has to be acknowledging that has to be part of the solution as well as understanding where tourism is going.
Yeah,
I should also say there's copies of Traveler on either side of the table, so when you leave, feel free to take some.
Yeah, just going back to what George said earlier about the unique identity of these fabulous cities, and I wonder what the panel feels about, should we say, the ubiquitous structures that are going up, glass and steel, because they're cheap, they're prefabricated, they're brought in on trucks, rather than the handcrafted buildings that we know and love so well. And it was quite poignant when you flagged up Estonia, very 21st century city, but it's retained that aesthetic, which is a key differentiator. And I just wonder what the panel felt about ubiquitous glass and steel structures going up, where a lot of cities are starting to look slightly similar.
The sameness, and cities are being built for now, not built for centuries.
I think you see that a lot in Asia, especially Chinese cities somehow seem to have taken and gutted some of their most historic centers for high-rise steel and glass. I mean, the problem that they're going to face when they're competing with the rest of the world is the rest of the world, some of the smart cities preserve their past for visitors and their own inhabitants' enjoyment and meaning. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's something to be, if you're smart, you're saving it.
Okay. That's right. Smart cities acknowledging their assets and building and growing around them. Thank you. Last question, sir.
I know you focused mainly on smart cities, but
can we take anything from that, the developments in smart cities into smart villages? And because in smart villages, we're facing the same problems of resources, the same problems of tourists coming in and making an impact on the environment. So can we learn anything from smart cities and bring it, have that relevance to smart villages?
A question about scale, and it's
Yes,
a great
scale.
question.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
I think at the end, doesn't matter how is the size of the city, the essence of the city, of the village is the core. This is about this. I mean that in Quito, for example, this is a 2,400,000 inhabitants, but the old town is like a special district with 300,000. But they still preserve the essence, and the people is going there. So the idea is, doesn't matter how big is the land. The important thing is what kind of essence do your village or your city has. Okay, that is the secret. If you preserve that, doesn't matter if the village will grow in the future or not, but we'll preserve that. And this is, for me, that's the main thing.
Well, I'd like to thank our panelists, Julie, Hilda, Patricio, and Andrew, and thank you all for being with us at National Geographic Travelers panel.